Welcome to another episode of One On. This is where we have religious, political, social discussions and debates. Tonight, it's just an open discussion, totally open, where we just sit around and talk about anything. However, you probably want to listen to this because anything can mean a lot of things. Tonight, my guest, who's going to actually co-host the show with me by asking questions, and he's going to ask me questions, and I'm going to ask a question, and we're just going to talk. Wayne Dawson.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me,
Peter
brother,
Gracey.
man.
We made it. We've been talking about this. We've been chatting on your writing. But this is finally here, man. Everything is due course and due time, my brother.
Everything, due course and due. Can you hear me okay?
Sir. Hear you loud and clear.
I can hear you loud and clear, man.
Beautiful.
So, Wayne, man, it's been a while, bro. We've been talking back and forth about all kind of things. So now it's time to give some of the people, some of the things that we've been talking about. However, let me just say this. Hold on, which mode should I be in? The honorable esoteric mode or just the regular mode?
Let's go anything the spirit takes you to, brother. Anything. So if you feel esoteric, let's raise it to that level.
Well, if you're talking about spirit, we have to go esoteric.
Yes, sir.
All right? We have to go esoteric.
Let's do it.
Esoteric it is, right?
Good.
So what I was saying is we're going to be talking about things that some people are not ready to hear, or they probably don't want to hear it, or they probably will deny everything they hear and just click away, right? So, Wayne, talk to me, brother. Talk to me.
Well, the good thing is that there's an old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So everything is due course, right? And since folks have the liberty of changing the frequency and moving to another channel, as it were, then we allow them to do that. If those who stay and listen are drawn to it for a reason, Peter. So those who are here, whether it's one or two or many, they're here for a reason. No happenstance.
All right. So, okay. Yeah. So now that you're mentioning the change of the frequencies, let's start there, my brother.
Yes,
frequency,
sir.
The changes that's going on. Lately, we've been seeing a lot of changes, right? I don't have any topics written down, man. We're just talking, right?
Sounds good. Yeah, man.
We have no script. We have nothing, right?
No,
we have
no.
absolutely no notes, nothing. I don't have anything. So
no, we got us. We're just moving with the vibes.
Going with the frequency. We're riding the frequency, right?
Yes, sir.
Riding the current. All right?
That's right.
So if we're now talking about frequencies and current and all that, these times that we find ourselves in and these changes that's going on, do you feel that it's a global change, or do you feel it's a universal change? Do you think it's a what's the other word? The word I'm looking for? A change that involves the astrological change. Do you think it's a political? Do you think it's a social? Or do you think it's mental? What kind of change are we going through?
I think it's ubiquitous. I think this change has come about because we talk about frequency. It's a consciousness, it's a total awakening happening across the entire world right now, globally. The Black Lives Movement is not by accident why people from other parts of the world are joining, and we're calling them allies. It is this awakening that's been sort of in the background for quite a while, just vegetating, so to speak, and it's now the spring for it to start blossoming. But it's happening. It's happening across the entire diaspora and even in the motherland. So Black folks, even though we haven't yet changed the table in terms of aren't the ones holding the handle, we're still holding the blade, we're beginning to at least recognize that there's a knife in the game. So it's happening at the same time all across. And how is this happening? I strongly believe that we are here because we are functioning energy. We are considered persons, which comes from the word per, through, son, sona, sound, through sound. And what it is, we as a being actually manifest based on, in the beginning was the word, from the word came what? So we are, in fact, nothing more than functioning energy at the human experience. And I don't want to zap people up, but already I can tell that some of the channels are changing out. But here's what is happening, Peter. You and I know that the center of this universe is the sun of this particular galaxy, our universe, so to speak, or I like to call it multiverse. And the sun is the central force that sends off energy. Without, if you woke up one morning and there was no sun, you're in another planet, another world, another time. Life has to sustain itself only because we have that. But the sun sends off radiation. Radiation is energy. And that force drives life on planet Earth. Now, I don't want to get into the religious aspect of things because we can even talk about that at some other point. But right now, talking about frequency, what is happening is that sun, you and I spoke about this, affects every grass blade, every aspect of photosynthesis, osmosis on planet Earth based on the rays that it receives. And it also affects us. We know about that because we talk about we're melanated people and we are, you know, when the vibes or the energy level of that sun hits us, the way we receive it, we radiate and have life, right? We get up with that energy. You know how you feel on a day when you're feeling depressed and you go out and get some sunshine, it wakes you up. So what is happening really on planet Earth is we are experiencing a certain frequency or radiation, which when it enters the human system, it becomes life energy. Now, most of us will have been to the doctor in recent days or years. The big thing is they tell you you need D, vitamin D, vitamin D, vitamin D. Because if you're not outside, the body doesn't do well in terms of functioning without vitamin D, and that comes from the sun.
Right.
That energy, Peter, is happening right now to bring about a certain sort of titillation or internal energy and vibration across the planet. And we're responding to it in similar fashion and manner based on the ecosystem around us. So without getting deeper than that, all I will say is it is not by accident. It is by, as it were, astral design or cosmetic design why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. The other thing is, and this is different from the astrology that people talk about when they pick up a book and talk about you're a Leo, you love, you know, fine cars and that stuff. But the ancient teachers of old, they built a lot of their survival around the understanding of how the cosmos work. So there were certain alignments with certain planets, and each planet and each system in our solar system radiates at a different frequency. The moon is the moon, and you know, women have with their menses a certain influence when the moon is up, and they'll tell you that. And we talk about lunatic, which is really the relationship of our sensibilities with the energy of the moon. When the moon is full, people seem to be more lunatic, right?
Right.
But we use these terminologies loosely. And we talk about, I feel that person's vibe. You know, you give me good energy. It is coming from a place that's real. And so to break it down simply to you, what is happening is there's a certain alignment right now in terms of the cosmos that's impacting our psyche and raising consciousness all at one time across the planet. So people are becoming less dark and more enlightened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, man. That's a lot, man. That's a lot to suck in, bro.
Yeah, I know.
That's a lot. But you know, let me kind of like just add to that a little bit. So you said you didn't want to touch on religion and all that stuff, but
No, I'm good.
But you know, right now we're talking. You're talking about the frequencies and the changes and that we're experiencing and things like that. And I remember in Luke 22, Luke 22, 8. Luke 22, 8 to 10. And I'm just saying these Bible terms because I believe that, well, I'm not going to say that I believe because I don't really have a belief system, but I'm going to say that the allegories, or these things that you find in the Bible is something that you have to pay attention to. Like Luke
Absolutely.
22, 8 to 10, Jesus sent Peter and John saying, go and make preparation for us to eat the Passover. In COVID, you keep hearing about the Passover and the Passover and the Passover. And then his disciples ask him, where do you want us to prepare for it? They ask, and Jesus replied saying, as you enter the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you.
Yes, sir.
Follow him to the house that he enters.
Yes, sir.
So let me break this down a little bit, right?
Yes, sir.
So you went and you talked about astrology. So I'm going to explain ages and how it works, because now we have to understand that, we can talk about, Trump this and Trump that and Biden and Obama and this and that, but people don't understand the mental, how we're affected mentally by these astrological changes. And these things comes around every 2,160 years. As far as we know, the hands of time that was created by man, because space doesn't know time, right?
Right.
Space is just space. Space has no time. So
time is frozen space that we use to denote where we are. Yeah.
So we can give an account for things and all that.
Yes, sir.
But the first age that we saw and we experienced as mankind, not humankind, because humankind is different from mankind. If you look at that suffix there, the kind, if you're back in the days, if your mom ask you, hey Wayne, man, what kind of meat kind we're gonna have today? What are you gonna ask her? What is she really asking you? She's asking you what, it's not a specific type of meat. It could be a variety. So when you hear about mankind is not original human. Mankind is a kind of a man, right? They're not the original human. So from the creation of mankind, we came into Gemini. It started off with two, always about two, right? We had Adam and Eve, we had Cain and Abel, and stuff like that, right? And that was the first age that was recorded, Gemini. Right after that, and that lasted for 2,160, give or take some years, like 10, 20 years, whatever. And we entered out of the age of Gemini, and then we entered into the age of Taurus. And that was when you found the grazing going on, and the cattles and the bulls and this and that and all that stuff. It was all about cattles and, and farming and things like that,
And the worship of the bull.
And then 2,160 years later, here comes a guy, I think his name was Moses, right? He went up to the mountain, he came back down with the scrolls, and he kicked over everything and said, are you guys still praying to that, the golden calf? Again, the cow, Taurus, right? We just switched out of Gemini, 2001. If you look at your calendar, your horoscope, this is the order that it goes in, right? So we got out of Gemini, 2,160 years later, we got into Taurus. Moses came down and said, I present to you the Lamb of God, the Lamb. Now we enter into Aries. All these little things are like totally significant, right? But people are following the Bible, but they're following it not the way I think they should. They're just following it so literally and just lose all their money by giving it away to people, right? And then so we entered the age of Aries, and it was all about sacrificing sheep, lamb, the blood of the lamb, this, that, all that stuff. And then there was a prediction that that I think it was from Isaiah, that there shall be a king, like I think it was like 500 years before, something like that, whatever, and they should call him Emmanuel. Soon after we came out of Aries, this guy showed up, and his name was Jesus, right? And Jesus came in and he started talking about, I'll make you fishers of men, da 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 da, all that stuff. And here comes we enter into the age of Pisces.
Right.
Right. So now we're in the age of Pisces. Each age changes our mental process, right, because the alignment of the equinoxes and all that changes. Right. And just as how you mentioned that the moon has an effect on people, like without the moon, the cycles of a woman menstruation period would not be regular. It right. affects right. us. It affects every human being, right?
Right.
Whether mentally, physically, it affects the earth, the tides, the earth swells, the water goes there, da da da. It's all about what's going on above us and below us. So above, so below.
Right.
Now well, Jesus showed up, right?
Right.
And
right.
he came with the fish. And this is where we found ourselves for the past how many years, as far as we know ourselves. Right. In right. Pisces.
That's why you see the fish on the back of the license plates, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But if you notice, those fishes are gone.
Yes.
Look for these fishes and see where they are. Look to see how many cars you can count these fishes on. Because now, 2,100 years and 2,160 years later, now we're coming out of an age where it was all about devotion. It was all about a belief system. It was all about these things. Now, we're in the age of knowing. We're getting into the age of Aquarius. Remember, follow the man with the water pitcher. This is what Jesus replied to them. And you will know when I'm back, right? Yeah. So here comes the man with the water pitcher. The symbol for Aquarius is the man with the water pitcher, yes. right? Yes. So now we're entering this age, which is the age of artificial intelligence, the age of knowing, the age of coming out, the age of realization, and the age of religion is going to be gone in this age, totally gone. Because this is where the Bible ends, as far as your savior, right? Yes. Now you find that 1 in every so many people are these millennials and these kids. It's like, what is it? Like 4 or 5 out of every millennials don't even believe in religion anymore.
Yes.
They're more spiritual.
Yes.
If you really check it out, right?
Yeah, my son told me he's agnostic. That's the new term for them.
They
all tell you they're agnostic. And you say, what does that mean? He says, well, you can't prove, but you can't disprove. So I'm just kind of on the fence. I believe there is something out there, but I don't see it like a religious kind of script the way that our forefathers and we had it. And, you talked about the movement of the planets and the celebration. And this is not new to Christianity. Many other religions and sects all over the world, SECTS, celebrate the 31st, the 25th as the new birth for their deity. And it's really when the sun, in terms of its movement across the horizon, right, goes to its lowest area, the bowel, so to speak, and sits there for about 3 days before it's obvious that it begins to ascend once again into the heavens. And so the ancients saw that as it being in its manger and dying and then rising again, the S-U-N, not the S-O-N.
On the third day.
On the third day.
Yeah.
And so the ancient wrote about that. Now, a lot of things in the Bible, and like you said, the Bible is very potent because man has for years been studying history and life. It's like when we look to our grandfathers and fathers, we expect wisdom because they've been around. So they know a thing or two. They know some shortcuts. They know some long cuts. They know a thing or two. Imagine years and years and years and generations of people studying Earth and what's going on, how they could have compiled. So the Bible also teaches a lot of wisdom, like you said, but it's not to be taken literally. It's figurative, it's metaphoric, and it's allegorical and symbolical. And that's the reason why it stands the test of time, because with those, it's like telling in Jamaica, we have the folklore Brother Anansi. You tell stories which lives on forever about Brother Anansi, and tigers don't talk, nor does Anansis, but it teaches, the wisdom of it is the lesson behind it. And that way you can engage and tell people orally the story about how certain things happen in life using the allegory and the metaphor of bread and Nancy. It's the same thing in many of the biblical stories. So they're so well written that you can break it down and take it as a form of as historical, which really there is very little proof except by religious scholars, especially Christian scholars or Jewish scholars, that can refer to proof of things evidenced on the planet that relates to biblical knowledge. A lot of things are not evidential.
Right.
People go with blind faith, and there's a funny thing about blind faith. You know, the word blind alone tells you that that's a problem. But whenever you challenge anyone not to challenge their faith, because people will live and die by their faith, and if it makes you better and beliefs make you strong and cure, that's fine. But if you challenge people with knowledge and evidence, they'll tell you that it's a sin to use the brain and intelligence. You must use faith. So they'll always stay in that position of not knowing because of this. But if it works for folks, it works for folks. But one of the things I know for a fact is if you know, the way I eat, for example, I know that if I put together certain medicine that's natural herbs versus taking medicine that the doctor gives me, it's going to make me feel better. And guess what? It probably will, because of my belief system. So one of the things that when people pray is that they are changing the constitution of their vibration so that the actual energy of faith and belief changes the very system. You can pray away cancer because the body doesn't know imagery from reality. So if you start visualizing and telling your system the electromagnetic waves plus the biochemistry within the system changes, cells actually will become healthy. And
but isn't that though? Let me ask you this though: if they're praying and and you're praying, what praying versus meditation, right?
Yeah.
When you're praying and you're praying to say Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Does it make a difference if you pray to Jesus versus if you just know or you just believe or you just meditate this thing away? Does it make a difference?
Well, see, prayer gets you quiet and focused and intentional, and that's what meditation is. You know.
So let me ask you this then, right? If you tell someone, say, just stop praying and meditate, is that wrong?
Not at all.
So if you tell a Christian that, listen, man, I don't pray, man, I ain't got time for prayer, is that wrong?
No, it's offensive to them because they rest their hat on that faith system, and so they feel challenged. You know, when you ask a person why, you challenge their belief system and they feel offended. So, I mean, you do your thing. You know, I'm a vegan. So when I go to a person's house and they're cooking beef or stew or whatever, it's not me to tell them, look, man, you can't cook that. I can say, don't serve it to me. But they should respect that as well. Meaning, you know, they shouldn't fight me down and try go out there to beat me up, which is what I think has caused most of the wars that we have had on the planet. People being intolerant and feeling like, look, my God is greater than your God, so I'm going to fight you and convince you against your will. And that, I think, is the very essence. I think one of the things the ancient knew, though, is that the salvation of the God we look for is within us. Meaning, when you pray, you know, you are working with your internal system to bring about the change. So the idea that you're looking and waiting for something bigger and better and above and exterior which is what, by the way, racism through the system of white supremacy has done. They've given us these religions, in particular, religion on the basis of loving your slave master and looking for salvation outside of yourself, that has made the black man and woman impotent. They're unable to free themselves because they have to depend on, you know, one of the things you hear black people saying, that sufferation is part of the glory of being a Christian, you know? So you can live in hell on earth and wait for some salvation in another life, when the gentleman who is oppressing you is enjoying it right here. And there's nothing wrong about having a God, if you believe in that system, that's having you enjoy life. No, so I struggle with those kind of things too.
When you talk about life though, I think that the people who are praying to have a better life, to me, I think that's foolish. Because life is life. Life has nothing to do with us. Life is just this thing that's going. And we may pop up or we may come into it and we fall out of it. It's just life. Life has nothing to do with us. It's what we do while we're experiencing life that makes us feel good or feel bad. Because, bad people live longer than good people.
How old are you now? All right.
Well, look at it this way, man. If you go to work and you're having a bad day, the day goes really long. But if you have a good day, you're like, man, the day just ended. It just ended. Think about the good things that you're doing, and all of a sudden it just ends. And you're like, what the hell? But when you're going through something bad, it actually lingers and lingers and lingers, or so it feels. So if you're really thinking about it, bad lasts longer than good. But it's really a mental thing.
Yeah.
Because as a man thinketh, so is he.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're talking about this inner belief or whatever it is, do you think that, and let me ask you this, do you think that if you were supposed to look outside for God, if you were supposed to look for God, where would you look, outside or inside?
No, inside, because I believe, and again, part of the teaching, even for those who believe in this, the teaching is that we were made in God's image. And to me, I go beyond that. I think that is for maybe the first level of consciousness. And I think once you unveil that piece of it, it's really saying that, as we all know, the energy or the life force that created you and I is the same life force that created the plants, the so-called other life forms that we see out there and think are of the lesser kingdom. It's the same life force that created that. And so this is why some of the Native Americans and other cultures in Africa, when they cut a tree or a plant down, they give libation or they give thanks to it. Because what they're saying is, you're my brother. You sustain me. Without you, I can't exist. I exist through you. The European is one of the only groups that have come on the planet Earth and is unable to live in harmony with nature. The European thinks he has to compete and conquer nature. And so everywhere the European goes, it's about death, domination, and destruction. Where the early people on the land understood what it was to have cooperation, collusion, right, and collection. So communities originated because people understood that if you are going to hunt, you only hunt what you need to sustain yourself. You don't hunt to destroy so you can create an artificial world. Because what happens eventually is it will and has always imploded on man. So I say that to say we understood, and I do, that the same vibration that we talked about, the same frequency, the same energy, the same life force that exists in the creative force is manifesting itself in me at this point in time as a human being. But
when you say human being, though, when you say human being, do you think human being is different from mankind?
Well, I think human being is, I say being because being is the presence, the actualizing being, meaning the verb being mean the doing. So the human being mean is, for me, is the actual manifesting at this point in time and being. You know what I'm saying? So it really refers to the life force functioning as a humankind in the now and here.
Well, you see, the way I look at it, though, the way I look at it, and coming from an esoteric level, is um, human beings existed before mankind. And the thing is, human beings created mankind. And I know I'm going to get in a lot of trouble to say this, but I think that human beings created mankind, which included everyone else outside of melanated people. See, the word human, when you take that word, when you look at the prefix, the hue, the HU, it means aboriginal. It means the original. For instance, if you take dirt that's humus, it's that black dirt. You can grow anything in it. But when you have when you wash away, when it's washed away and you have the residual of the dirt, the white portion of it, you get sand. And foolish is the man who built his house on sand, because nothing can grow in it because it's not humus anymore. Right? The hue. When you look at the skin, the hue.
Of course.
So now you have the hue man. Let's talk about the hue and the man for a minute. You had the pre-Adamites. And these things are actually proven that pre-Adamites exist. And pre-Adamites are those before Adam. And if you follow, like back in the days, you listen to the Nation of Islam and you follow like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he talks about the creation of mankind when Yaqub was wrestling with the devil in this experiment.
Of course.
And this is when people outside Yaqub, right, outside of the people outside of the melanated people or black people, black actually created white people, right? Because you see, as a Mason, we're not taught to, but what I've discovered is that we don't obey laws. We create laws, right? And what that means is a law is something that cannot be broken.
Immutable.
Yes. You run a red light, that's not a law. It's a rule. Right. But it's mankind's way of adapting these things and calling it laws, because now they're creating things that we're not supposed to break, but we can break it. So it's not a law. The law of gravity is a law. You cannot break it, right? The law of love is a law. The law of attraction, the law of autosuggestion, all these things are law. You can't break it. So now we have the Mendelian law, which was actually created by discovered by a white geneticist called Jack Mendel, right? Where he found that dark skin is dominant and light skin is recessive. Dark eyes are dominant and light eyes are recessive. You can get the recessive from the dominant, but you cannot get the dominant from the recessive.
Right.
And this is a law. So it means that whites had to come from blacks.
Right.
Right? So therefore, the creation of mankind was created by the original human, which is the humus, the human, the black. When a child is being born, it comes out of a triple dark stomach.
Yes.
Everything that's created comes out of darkness, because you have to think about it before. And where do you think about it? Right up here.
Yes.
In your head, where it's dark. Right.
Yes, sir.
And then you bring it out to light. So everything had to be created in darkness. So I'm saying this to bring about the idea of, we have to understand who we are. You talk about not showing away, but you talk about the sun and the grass and all that. Well, when you think about the sun, emitting its rays. It emits rays at 528 hertz, and it hits the grass at 528 hertz. The grass vibrates and releases oxygen at 528 hertz, and we inhale it, and we exhale at 528, and we exhale carbon dioxide at 528. Then the leaves take it, and it's just this big cycle, you know? But for the human to blow breath into mankind, or the creator to blow breath into mankind, it's us creating these things. Now, where did all this go wrong as far as the Europeans became the ones to conquer and divide, or divide and conquer? Remember this, or no, I should say this and you can jump on it. The Bible talks about, the black man having sex with his children because he saw that they were fair. And this is where we went into this deep state of craziness for 400 years, right? Because we screwed up, they were casted out in the hills of the Caucasus. This is where the term Caucasian comes from, because they came back out of the Caucasus Mountains. But people don't understand that. People don't understand that out of the Caucasus Mountains, this is where the stories of the caveman came about. We weren't the cavemen.
Yeah. Well, I'm a history buff and spent quite a time at the feet of some of the great ones. Dr. Ben Hockennon, the ancestors, they rest in peace. We have some living ones here still, Dr. Len Jeffries, Baba James Smalls, the list goes on. And I had the privilege at City College to hear these guys. I used to go to what was called the Slave Theater every Wednesday. And these guys lectured, these great ones. And so talking about raising of consciousness, and one of the things I learned was that because of our nature as a people, when we had the splendor of early civilization, temples, and just like today, people go to Harvard and Yale and Oxford and those places, people came to the motherland to study at the feet of the intellects and the great ones, the Africans, to learn. And I mean, people from all over, the Phoenicians, everybody came there to learn.
Talk about the Phoenicians, because you'll confuse people, because a lot of people don't know about the Phoenicians.
Yeah. So let's then talk about the Romans.
Oh, that's even there. I think people should know about the Romans.
Yeah. So a lot of what they came for was the collection of knowledge. And you hear about the Hyksos people coming into Egypt. They were a foreign people, and perhaps we know now that they were hostile and got some of the information, it is written, and they claim that they were making their escape with Moses. But what we do know is that these were people who had come from a place of scarcity and were swoon by all that they learned from the ancient masters and the teachers, the priests and high priests in Egypt at the time who had evolved. And really what we're looking at were a foreign people out of the West. We're looking at white people. And so when they came in and they saw what was happening, at the end of the day, they wound up taking our truth, so to speak, our wisdom, and having to go back home, so to speak. They had to make their history somewhat valiant and worthwhile, because there were people who had come out of nothing. And so they began to inscribe their own history among the information that they had picked up while they studied among the great Africans.
Mhm.
I mean, today Egypt has a border and a boundary, right? But when we talk about Africa, Africa was a place that existed where you simply saw the land, not the geographical or geopolitical borders that the Berlin Conference put in there. It was a whole different thing. So we're talking about a place for black people, period. You know, the Egypt that we know today is pretty much an insurgence of foreigners coming in and oftentimes raping, because that's what happens when you have conquerors. They rape the local people.
Mhm.
And so you have this Asiatic or this look of the Arabs, but the primary African people were black people, like you see in the Sudan today and Ethiopia, who occupied there, a lot of whom have moved further down to, over time, by the way, to West Africa. You can find a lot of them in Nigeria and Ghana today, original, and you know that because the language is so similar. And if you follow the language that was spoken by those groups, you see that the Jewish group speaks a very similar language. I say that to say that and I'm going to be careful here as well, but don't be fooled because a person holds a religious right over your head to think that they are original, or they were the creators, or they were the selected or special or any of that stuff. When you know yourself and your history, you realize that everything after that is a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. So when you talk about the black man being the mama and papa of Europeans, oh, that is evidential truth. In many ways, it is what they have done is created science to support their fallacy. So you have Darwinism, where we supposedly came out of man growing out of apes. Nothing like that. But what, as you point out early, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan speaks of, because it came from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they talked about the grafting of the white man. And see, we see it happening today, and because we are of the mindset that we are a dark people, literally and figuratively, coming out of a place of illiteracy and no knowledge and no wisdom, we find it hard to believe that people could have been creating and experimenting before this time and age with genetics. And so what Elijah Muhammad was trying to teach even then was that the wisdom of blacks were able to bring about experimentation that brought about, you know, the Bible talks about Elohim and let us make man. Well, if God is by himself, who is us?
Well, if you ask that question, you will be told that Jesus was there with God from the beginning. You know, but the way I see it is within each person, I think that we are the Trinity. That's it. We have the me, the myself, and I.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I am God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe a God exists outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I am God. Now, I did not say that me is God or myself is God,
Mm-hmm.
right? I believe that the I is the superior of the Trinity. So when I say I am God, if you again visit the Bible or the Holy Quran or any books, they talk about the I, the great I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a saying that if you don't believe in love, you don't believe in God, because God is love, and love is inside all of us somewhere. Mm-hmm. So if love is inside of us, then God is inside of us. And if God is inside
so is the word. So is the word.
So is the word, right?
Yes, sir.
Exactly. There you go. And therefore, if it's inside of us and the great I am is God, then I must be God. However, I am not referring to the self as God.
Right. Right.
But when you meditate and when you get to certain vibrational levels and you can hop on certain frequencies, you can actually know, or when people say, yeah, they spoke to God and they hear God talk to them, It's
Of
all
course.
happening from, you see, everything happens from within. When you smell something, you're not smelling, your nose doesn't, your nose only gives you the entrance for those particles or whatever you call it to come
Of course.
inside to smell it. But the smell happens from inside of your head.
Of course.
It happens from your brain. You know, when you see something, it's not your eyes that picked it up. It's here, but your
Yeah.
eyes are the instrument that is
Of
used to
course.
actually convert the images.
Of
But
course.
it's
As a matter of fact, when your eyes pick up images, the images are upside down, and it's your brain, the optic nerves, that makes them right side up.
yeah,
So everything is happening, as you said, from within. The whole
exactly.
idea of consciousness and reality is it's about perception. Peter, let me just say this. You know, we're going to have to continue, right? For more reasons than one. One reason is when I got the phone, because my laptop wasn't working this afternoon, I didn't get to charge, and I'm using the port for the lighting system. So prematurely, we might wind up, but we must promise each other that we're going to finish and do part 2 soon.
We
But
will.
I think this is more than enough for the people anyway, because you probably just lost half of your listening audience tonight.
Hey, look, man, let me tell you something, man. Me, I've mastered the art of not giving you know what I'm saying? I don't look to people for happiness or joy, or I'm not into that. When I get up every day, my only purpose in life is to experience life.
Yes, sir.
I experience this thing every day, and bro, I'm telling you, man, it is so
Yes,
freaking
sir.
awesome, man.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, you get
Yes, sir.
up and you're experiencing this thing. Whatever you do after that are goals and these low level purposes, like just like how mankind create their rules and they call it laws. When we create these things and we call it purpose, and we all
Yeah.
have to have those little purpose while we're here. But my
Yes.
only purpose is to experience this thing. And bro,
Yes.
I'm experiencing it with my brother right now, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know
Yes,
what
sir.
I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
It's
I
beautiful.
wanted to just drop this last bit here
Yeah.
on my part, and then you can close off for now before we prematurely get shut off. But, you know, the story of Jesus is similar again in many groups. In fact, there's a book out called 16 Crucified Saviors that talks in very similar term of parallelisms to the Christian Jesus. And one of them is Osiris, who later was called Heru. Heru became Isis, Isis became Jesus, and they both were born of a virgin birth. They both were born on 25th, died, and were raised again. Not they both, but several folks went through that. And so one might say it's hearsay or it is falsehood that these other religions, but you can have the more ancient one being the copy. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the teaching is significant, but people need to understand that they will free themselves if they understand the, as you call it just now, the esoteric. So there's a surface stuff that the vulgar gets. The people who aren't ready, you can't give a child a loaded gun. So you give folks what they can manage, and at the same time, there are people in inner circles that get a little bit more, and then there's still a higher level of understanding. Whichever level you fall in, it should help you to have a better life, like you just said,
Mhm.
right?
To
Because
live
that's what.
life in a better way.
Yes, sir.
Not a better life, because life is not good or bad. Let me ask
Yes,
you a
sir.
question, right? If life
Yeah.
is a swimming pool, I don't even know how I came up with this crap. If you jump in a swimming pool and you call the swimming pool life, if you're struggling to swim, is it the pool's fault? You need to just go learn to freaking swim, bro.
True.
You know what I'm
True.
saying? It has nothing to do
True.
with the pool.
It just is.
It
And
just is.
everything.
Life is just is. We're here
Yeah.
and we're in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just need to just understand that we're experiencing this thing, and it's
Yeah.
up to us to live and walk good.
Yeah. The construct of and the construct of what we call God only exists because we have a construct of what we call the devil or evil. You can't have one without the other. I
Okay.
mean, that's
Yeah.
one of those immutable laws, right? You can't identify what's good unless you identify what's bad, because one is relative to the other. and you must have both. And in any one day or any one season, one can be the other. It's a matter of degree. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So cold is cold, but it's not absolute. Cold is on a line that ends up at one place as hot. So it depends on where you are. It's the same. So what I'm saying is everything is relative. Everything happens here. It's your consciousness. If we didn't have a consciousness, we wouldn't have God. God is as conscious, as real to us as our consciousness allows. You know what I mean? And I think on that level, Peter, we got to call it end of a session.
All right,
and,
man. I just want to say, bro, it's it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I want to leave off by just saying, you know, we're here, man, and
yes.
you know, I don't know if I'm in heaven, and I don't know if I'm in hell. I don't know if I died before. Mark Twain once said, "I died 1,000,000 times, and I was never inconvenienced by it." You
Yes,
know what I'm
sir.
saying? I don't know if this is heaven, because how do you know you never died before? So as we walk, man, we just need to just experience this life and live good.
Yes, sir.
Wayne
Peace
Dawson.
and love, man. My brother, peace and love. We're going to talk some more.
One
Keep the
on, man.
power.
Wakanda.
Wakanda, brother. Take it
All
easy,
right,
Peter.
man.
Thanks a lot, man.
Wayne
Have a
Dawson.
strong end. Yeah.
All right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much, brother.
Peace and love.
Okay, so that was Wayne Dawson, and Wayne Dawson is a good brother, man. He's a good brother, you know. Um, whenever you come across a good brother, you have to embrace a good brother. The only time you look down at someone is when you're going to help them up. Don't stump someone. Don't hold back someone. You know, just love each other. You know, no matter how you see it, no matter how tempted you be, how you see things, and you think that things are going bad, or things are going, nothing goes bad, bro. Nothing goes bad. Nothing goes good. There's no such thing as good as bad. Life is just is. The only time you have a bad day is when you have expectations. When you're expecting something and it didn't go the way you expected it to go, then you have a bad day. But what if it worked out? You know, so there's no such thing as a bad day unless your expectations were not met. This is One On. Walk good.